Okay, so 1 week in to update 1.49, an update for Gran Turismo 7 that included a new track, some scapes, some other miscellaneous things, but most importantly, a new set of physics that can create all kinds of situations from good to bad to just downright crazy. So I'd like to take this opportunity to share my perspective on the new update and some tips that helped me adjust to the new physics. Okay, so the Eiger Nordwand circuit has been in the previous two Gran Turismo games, Gran Turismo 5, Gran Turismo 6, and now is reappearing in Gran Turismo 7, similar to how Grand Valley made its comeback from other games. In Gran Turismo 7, we actually just get two of the layouts. Now, in previous games, there have been interior circuits, the short track, the G trail, the K trail, the W trail, I think. But in Gran Turismo 7 right now, we just have the full circuit and the full circuit in reverse. Now, these tracks are generally fun to drive, but in my opinion, they're not really suited for higher category cars. So like Group 3 and up, it doesn't seem to really be a good fit. And Group 4, as I experienced on stream the other day, is kind of a head scratcher too, especially in Sector 1. Turns 2 and turns 4. The rest of the track is nice and flowing with high speed and medium speed corners, but the first sector in particular is quite challenging. But what I will say about the track is that we should be thankful that we got one, because typically the monthly updates just include a couple cars and maybe a couple scapes locations to shoot. But the more places we have to race, the better time for everyone across the board, whether you play online or offline. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and skip past all the other parts of the update to the thing that I think most of you really care about, the new physics and how it has changed from the last version to this version. Honestly, it seems like it's a complete overhaul in some ways, some good, some bad. So let me start with the good. The first is that between doing the Spa Daily C race the day before the update and the day of the update is that in medium and high speed corners, the corner entry tends to be a lot more lenient, meaning you don't get the understeer that you used to when approaching the apex of a high speed corner. Typically when I was using the Supra in this race, before the update, I would have to move the brake bias to the back, so that way the front tires were less concerned with braking and more concerned with turning. However, the suspension geometry changes that they've introduced seem to make it so that you can achieve the same result without changing the brake bias. Now, what I will say for low speed corners is that the understeer is sometimes insufferable. If you use a driving technique where you're trail braking, and then as soon as you get off the brake, you're on the power, you're going to experience that understeer. Look at this example here. At turn 2 at Eiger Nordwand, I'm in a Group 4 car going 25 miles an hour and I still can't get the car to turn, right? I'm pretty sure I can take my Jeep, drive it to Switzerland or wherever the heck Eiger Nordwand is, and execute that turn in my car at 25 miles an hour better than I can in this game. So in order to combat that, you kind of have to change the way that you drive, especially in low speed corners, where you're letting the car roll, aka not being on the gas or the brakes, and then when you see the exit, getting on the power appropriately. I would also say that one of the things that make the cars a bit more difficult to drive is the force feedback settings and how they've changed in all of the wheels. Depending on the wheel that you have, you might have to change things or do firmware updates. I know Fanatec users, they've completely had to do a firmware upgrade and then change a couple settings. I used the Logitech G Pro wheel and the true force settings pretty much got wiped out, turned down, and the force feedback has gotten a lot stronger. So in my case, what I had to do is go to the vibration settings and turn that all the way up, and then actually turn the true force setting up by another 10% to get it to a similar amount of what I was able to feel before. On the force feedback side, I had to do the opposite. I had to decrease it from 7.2 nanometers to 5.5, and this is with the game settings being maxed out. Personally, I like to max out the game settings and then make the fine-tuning adjustments on the wheel itself. Okay, now once you get that feeling back, there's still adjustments that you need to make regarding the limits of grip, especially on corner exits. It seems as though the window to catch yourself when you're a little bit too heavy on the power has shortened. It's definitely smaller and it's definitely harder to catch even with a force feedback wheel. So for those of you who are using a gear driven or a belt driven wheel like the G29 or G923, I would suggest actually turning on assists, counter steering in particular, to help with that transition. Now, it may seem like I'm kind of railing against the physics updates, but I actually think overall this is a positive step because it forces you to be more cognizant of things. The way that we used to drive in the game generally would consist of throwing the car into a corner, slamming on the brakes, turning a little bit, and then flooring it out of a corner, right? And generally, you know, we were able to get away with that because the car would stay under control and the loss of grip would be a little bit more gradual and easy to catch on a force feedback wheel. Now, if you do that, you're going to get crazy understeer. Braking is super important. You're going to have to do it a little bit earlier to get your car set up and turning in the correct way. Because of this understeer and sudden snap oversteer, you're going to have to be very careful about your lines. You're going to have to actually like look at the corner entry, look at the apex, and look at the exit ahead of time. It's going to force your eyes to actually move to the right parts of the track so that way you can keep the car under control. And I would say that the new tire model, while it still has its pitfalls like not showing the temperature, it actually punishes you for pushing too hard on the first lap or using the tires too aggressively over the course of a stint. No longer can you necessarily drive the car until the tires are all red and then fall off a cliff. It's actually a little bit more gradual right now, in my opinion, where you start to feel the understeer and the loss of grip about halfway through the tire being worn instead of just at 90% and then you have no grip. Now, with all that being said, the new suspension geometry and the new physics, I think it's not as drastic in certain cars. For example, I like to use the AMG Group 3 car, and I did so last weekend in the Manufacturer's Cup. And the feel of the car is not too different. As long as you're being a little bit careful on the power application coming out of corners, the car tends to behave largely in the same way. The Supra, on the other hand, the Supra Concept, the 2018 version, is not so much. It felt like I had to tiptoe around Spa. So the advice that I would give to anybody is just do a lot of time trialing. You know, just get used to the car before you hop into it daily if you're concerned about keeping your DR or things like that. It's going to take some adjusting. For me, it took about a week and I feel like I've got a general handle on it, but you know, results may vary. The next thing I would say is to like look at your replays, especially if you're not performing well. Look and see what people in your race actually did. What did the winner do? Where did they break? Or where did the best finishing car that's the same as yours do to get to their spot? And lastly, I hear a lot of people getting frustrated about the new update, claiming that they may want to step away from the game. And I think that in the long run is going to hurt you more than help. Because if you decide to eventually come back, you'll be even further behind. You know, just like the last time we had a major physics change, I would suggest that you just keep with it, stick with it, and eventually it'll come to you. All right, that's the end of the video, guys. I just wanted to share my thoughts really quick. If you found any value in this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.